Hi, I'm Justin with Oclef, and I want to talk to you about teaching harmony to beginning and early intermediate piano students. And more specifically, I want to talk about the idea of figured bass and how it can be a powerful tool for teaching beginners harmony at the keyboard. Before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about why this issue is so important to me. And for me, the idea of studying harmony is all about facilitating sight reading, as we can all agree that if you're a professional musician, an amateur, regardless of what role music plays in your life, being able to fluently sight read is a really important skill. It allows you to learn music quickly, and it allows you to enjoy as wide a variety of music as you possibly can. For us pianists, there are a number of stumbling blocks we can encounter when it comes to sight reading. And one of these is reading chords, especially complex chord progressions. As an example, I've decided to show this page by Maurice Ravel from his suite Miroir. This page includes a lot of really complex harmonies. They're dense, they have many voices, they're very chromatic, they're very dissonant. If I play just the melodic line, you can see exactly what I'm getting at. A student who is not really well versed in harmony, voice leading, intervallic reading is going to struggle reading a page like this at first glance. I remember as even an advanced piano student being confronted with pages like this, and with certain chords, like the one I've labeled here, I'd be reduced to reading them one note at a time. F natural, A, F sharp. And this included a lot of trial and error, and it was a frustrating process because it felt so random and painstaking. And this is where the whole idea of figured bass becomes so valuable. This is a figured bass exercise by D'Andrieu, an 18th century composer and keyboard player. And it gives you a really good idea of what figured bass is all about. You're given a bass line, and then you're given a set of intervals above that bass line. So you play the bass note C, you play the third above it E, the fifth G, and the eighth C. And you proceed to play the whole bass line, realizing the intervals that are notated above it. This is a really helpful way to study harmony, and it comes with a number of benefits that I'd like to briefly discuss. The first of these benefits is that we learn to understand chords in the context of a larger progression. They're not just random chords that we have to read one at a time. They have a grammar and a syntax to them, which we develop an understanding of. We also learn to read chords from the bass up, and this means we learn to read chords as a single unit. We're not stuck reading one note at a time. And lastly, we learn principles of voice leading, not as some kind of intellectual exercise with a pen and paper, but through experience. We learn voice leading through our fingers. And this means that when we encounter music that involves sophisticated voice leading, chord patterns that are built from the bass up, our minds and our fingers are good and ready to go, and we'll be able to read fluently. A perfect example of this is this passage from Bach's F major Sarabande, from one of his English suites. A person who's well versed in figured bass will quickly glance at this passage, and they'll see a series of four-voice chords distributed between two hands. They'll see that it's a 4-2 chord followed by a 6-3, 4-3, 5-3, 7-5, and finally a 5-3. And if they've been practicing figured bass and they have a familiarity with chord progressions that look like this, they'll quickly be able to play this progression. So all these reasons that I just presented are why I think it's really worth introducing figured bass into piano lessons for any student, even from the very beginning stages of their education. In my next video, what I'd like to discuss are some of the resources that we have for studying figured bass today. I want to talk about their benefits, their uses, but also some of the difficulties I've encountered when I've tried to implement them in piano lessons for beginning and intermediate piano students. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope you stay tuned.